Hey guys, so what we're going to do today is going to go over how to use bands properly. The idea of understanding how they can affect your training or personalized movements to you makes a big difference to your training. So we're going to bring this into three phases. Phase one is obviously trying to match a strength curve, how you're going to be able to balance the resistance profile of your body to an exercise to try and make sure, so in things like pressing movements, like a squat or a deadlift, a leg press, those sort of things, we can add resistance where we're stronger and take it off where we're weaker. So that would be it. We're going to show that through a hack squat and a deadlift. So they're two movements that should make quite a difference once you add those bands, and we'll show you where that's emphasizing ranges on that. Second one, we're going to be focusing on how to make a movement more contraction focused, or in movements like pulling or flexion, like something like a bicep curl or a row. Things, obviously with a band, the switch around the other way. The idea is trying to emphasize a particular point to be able to feel a muscle group more. So the idea is, in the shortened range, we're going to add more resistance to that point. So it's more of a, maybe at the start of the workout when you're trying to really feel a muscle group, or get a little bit more out of that range. So we'll show you through a bicep curl and a hamstring curl in that range as well. And then last of all, we're going to go through a straight leg deadlift and show you some cool little techniques around how to emphasize the hips and hamstrings by adding a band in certain positions to be able to feel that muscle group more, and because you've got something to shove into, you can feel those a little bit better. Alright, so on this one we're going to go through a hack squat. We're going to show you how to add a band to this to really match the strength curve in a way that is really nice on your knees, and you should be able to feel that there is a lot more help at the bottom of the range where you're weaker, and then we're making it a little bit harder on your body at the top. So it should match the strength curve. You should get a lot more output of this movement. So what we're going to use on this black band, the idea of obviously as that extends, as that adds more tension, as you get to the bottom of the range, it's going to be helping you out more. So what we're going to do is attach that to it. Depending on the machine, all we're going to do, get your shoulder out of the way, is bring that right up, and then we'll hook it over the top, or just wherever you can attach it, so that we obviously have a length from that as we come down. So what I'll get Liz to do is lift it up, bring your handles in, other one, and just from there, go through the movement. So obviously with the band there, you're going to find the lower you go down, the more that is adding resistance to the band. Cool. So it should be a lot nicer on your knees because you can feel that, especially if you've got issues with your knee, you're taking a lot of that tension off your knee. Cool. You can hook it up if you want. Easy. That all make sense?
Yeah, my knee's dodgy on my right side.
Yeah. So what I was talking to Liz here with is, if you've got clients here that have, or yourself, if you have issues with getting to the bottom of a squat or down, you're unstable in that range, this is a really nice exercise by itself to already get you strong in a range that is otherwise quite unstable. So obviously adding a band to this, what we're able to do is take away a lot of that tension in that range that's really going to be aggravating your knees, and get you really just comfortable with that range before you start adding weight to it in a way that is nice on your joints. So just an extra little thing there.
So if you do add weight to doing that,
Yeah.
how does it change it?
So in that position where you are going to, depending on how much weight you go, so things like, that's obviously a good point, because if you go, this is only going to be, depending on like a full stretch, this is only going to be adding 15, 20 kilos max to your movement. So as soon as you're on like something like a leg press, or you're really starting to load a lot of plates on here, you may go to something like a purple or a green band, because like the amount of the change, like you're still going to feel it, but by the time you get to 4 plates, that like 20 kilo change, you're really not going to feel too much, so you could stick with it. It just depends on how much you want to change the resistance curve of that profile. So like, especially in a leg press, I quite like to put on like a purple or a green one, because I want quite an excessive change from the top to bottom, and it also comes to how much distance you're traveling, because obviously in a leg press you want quite a sharp change in the movement, but it's over a very short range of the movement. So whereas this, you're going quite far down, so a little bit more stretch, you're able to feel what's going on. So it depends on the movement, but you start playing around with bands there. So right, so I haven't gone through this with Liz before, so it's going to be a fresh start on this one, but what we're going to be doing is adding a band to a deadlift. So the idea of, again, same as your hack squat here, we're trying to change resistance curve to where you're stronger and where you've got a little bit more power output. Okay, so obviously for a deadlift, it's the top of the range. So where you're weakest at the bottom, where this band is obviously adding no tension, as we get through the range, we start pulling that further away, it's going to be adding more and more resistance. So what I'm going to do is I'll get you to walk up to the bar, and you're going to chuck your feet over that band. Cool, so what I'll get you to do is try, when you grip the bar, just chuck your thumb over that band so it's locked in place. Yeah. So the big one with most people you'll find is before they've even picked up the bar, they're already around position. So they come down, they grab the bar as if there's already a lot going on. So this is Liv doing it naturally anyway. Stand up without the bar. And I want you to try and imagine that bar's already in your hands, so everything's set up, you're locking your lats, so everything from here is nice and tight. And now sit your hips back and lock this down. And so you're really trying to engage your hamstrings, you're trying to keep these shins as close to the bar as you can. Yeah, so to really lock these lats, sit into that rep. So when you keep don't pick it up yet, but I want you to flatten this back out a bit more, so really pull these shoulders down and back. That's it, and now sit your hips down a bit more. A little bit more, keep going. So you want your scapula to be directly over that bar, okay? You want that line of force to be there. And you also, you won't be able to pick that bar up until your shin is directly up and down. So the big one is trying to make sure you can get that as close to your shin angle as you can. So big one, lock your lats back, keep that chest up, and your goal is trying to drive your feet into the ground. You're not trying to pull that bar off the ground. So go. And you'll find as that gets up, yeah, drive that through. Obviously with no extra weight on there, you're going to feel that quite a lot more, but you can see as obviously the further we get away from the bottom of the ground, the more resistance that's going to be added to. So give me like 2 or 3 reps. The big focus here is I want you to squeeze these lats and really think of shooting your bum back. Body stays over the bar, bend the knees, bend the knees. That lasts a little bit, and then drive it away. Cool. And 2 more. Bend the knees, and then press the floor away. That's it. Last one, but a little more lats. Keep that body locked in place, and then go. Cool, relax there. Yeah, so you add 5 kilos or something to that, and that makes quite a difference. But obviously, setup is a massive one on that because you just like everyone in the gym yanks it off the ground. So even without the band, that's going to be a big difference in your strength of the profile. But if you're trying to get explosive power off the ground, again, you're not adding too much from the bottom. So if anybody's got a real issue setting things up, locking everything, then go from there. It actually makes a big difference. So. Okay, so in this one, what we're going to do is the focus here is obviously contraction. So we're trying to really emphasize what part of the range you feel more. Do the leg curl. The big focus on these ones to try feel your hamstring more is we're trying to make sure that we're as stable as possible from your hip joint. So what I want you to do while you're curling through the rep is really make sure your hips are locked and you're not lifting off this pad. Yeah. So now what we'll do today, just to make you think about these being locked in place, is I'm actually going to get you to lift your knees slightly off the pad. Yeah, and I want you to really think about squeezing your glutes and driving your hips down, yeah? So they're not going to move the whole way through the rep. So before you add the band, I want you to do a couple reps there and just really lock your hips down. So these, yeah, that doesn't move at all, that's it. Curl up. Relax, we'll go a little lighter. Relax, go right down. That's it, go. Go, so I want you to keep your legs close together. That's it, and I want you to curl these right up. So lock your hips in place and curl, keep going, right up. So give me a bit of range up top, keep going, and then hold. That's it. See, these hips are locked in place. Just give me like 3 more. And obviously I haven't taken Liz through this before as well, so you can see the more we lock the hips, the more, obviously the harder that is to get because she's not using her glutes to curl up. Relax her at the bottom. The other big one for her calves are obviously quite dominant in that range, so your gastroc joins over your knee joint as well, so there is a big, it is quite efficient at a knee flexion. So the more for now you can pull your toes back towards you, and try keep that position. You should hopefully, because your calves are in more lengthened position, should make a big difference to your hamstrings doing the work. The other way is actually pointing your toes to fully shorten it. It will be slightly harder again, but if you're trying to get your hamstrings working, I'd sort of recommend this one first. So if you just take your legs out of the way, as in stand up, I'm just going to chuck the band of this one. So what we're going to do to make this, add your band to make this a real more contraction focus, especially if you can't feel your hamstrings. Really nice one to get a bit more working in that range is what we're going to do, just something as close to you can, if there's nothing around that machine, use something like a dumbbell just to make sure it's hooked back. So we have a hack squat to use here. So all we're going to do, obviously again, the more that extends, the more that's going to be adding pressure. Because that's a fully shortened position for that muscle, all we're going to do is really exaggerate that position of the range. So if you try that again, what I want to look for is quite explosive reps on this, as long as your hips are quite locked in. So curl that through, lock those hips in place. Cool. So you should see already, because this is a big difference, the big focus on this one is always going to be hips. If you're finding quite a different resistance profile on that, the big difference in you trying to compensate for that will be your hips moving. So the more you can lock your hips down and drag that through, really try to get that right, and I'll give you a 2-second hold at the top if you can. Next rep. 2 more reps there, and really drag that through and try to hold that at the top. Keep these hips locked down. So last one. So obviously as you're curling from here, you're trying to lengthen that from the other end. So the more you can really lock this down, the more you'll really feel the hammy, yeah? Like obviously in general, you've got to make sure you lock this hip, but the big one is as you're trying to shorten that. So for now, getting clients to just lift their knee and try to lock that in place is quite a nice little thing to use. So just keep your arms straight and just do the retraction. That's it. So elevate your shoulder, protract shoulders and then retract. Yeah, both sides. Go forward. So just do a couple reps. I want you to try to pull your shoulders forward. Pull them forward. And then I want you to try to drag these back and try to think about pulling them down this way a bit more. Just your shoulders. So stretch out and then drive these shoulders back and down, hold with your arms straight. So pull your shoulders back, hold it, and then stretch forward. Drag your shoulders back, squeeze there. So if you're engaging your lats here, okay, the idea here is obviously trying to initiate the movement with your lats, okay? So Maya's been through this road before. What we're going to do on this is just the same thing as our contraction focus. We're going to add a red band to this. If you're having clients having issues with really feeling this range, a band can be an option, but where it is different and where I think bands is sort of overdone on back training is you've got to think of it as a different concept. Pressing movements, it works really well because where you're stronger, you're adding more weight or you're making it harder. Whereas with bands, with back, you're finding you're adding resistance where you're already weaker. So you're going to really exaggerate the range anyway in a consistent movement. Most machines are already going to match that strength curve. You're going to find that, not match the strength curve, going to be opposite because they're very focused on that contraction and there's always a bit more in the range. So I'm just going to get Maya to go through the row first. And the big one on these is trying to make sure you initiate the right muscle anyway. So you'll find that most people is always starting just this as a pulling movement. So the more you can forget about this thing, the better you're going to feel your back. If you can try lean forward a little bit, I mean you try to engage your lats first and try to drag that through. So you're trying to retract your shoulders, trying to pull them down and back. And a big focus on this is everybody thinks about trying to drive your elbows back. Obviously your lat is it fans out in this way. So the more you can try drive your elbows around your body and really get it closer to that point, the more you're going to feel your lats. Okay, so stretch right out. You want to try and engage your lats back, squeeze them first before anything else moves, and then drag through the range, trying to drive and wrap your elbows around your body. Yeah, so she's done this before. She's really quite good at those. So really, if you're doing those properly, I'd argue that adding a band to that might not be a good idea for most people because that range is already going to be very weak. Okay, so I'm going to show you the example of how you'd add a band to that if you are really good at these and you want to add something, but I'm also going to show you what could be a better alternative. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a band around there, hold the handle, and I'm going to get you to hold those as well. Cool, so what this is obviously going to do is just as you pull back, it's going to give you even more range in the back. So we've already got 14 kilos on there. You really won't, if you're doing this properly, you won't need anything more. So we're going to pull those shoulders back, just go through your row, and I want you 2-second hold at the back. And you're going to find it's really nice squeeze at the back, but it's going to have to be quite explosive reps because you're really feeling a lot there, and then she can do this bit all day. It's real easy. Okay, so we're just trying to make sure you drag these shoulders back. Try to get this fast. Like give me a good amount of speed on this, then squeeze out there. That's the one. Yeah. So if you really want to get a focus on that contraction, that'd be a nice way of waking things up. But I wouldn't recommend it as a working set. It would just be trying to wake things up. Cool. And even there, you can see. There's it is such a strength gradient that's the opposite of your body. It's going to be quite hard work to keep those lats down. She's quite good at this, so it's a little bit different. So what I'm going to do, cool, relax there. As a alternative to that, to be able to feel or match your strength curve better, which is obviously what we're trying to do with the bands. For back, a nice way of doing this, if you grab the handle again, what we've just done is obviously we've kept this really light, only 14 kilos on there to feel a really nice contraction in the back. If you're doing that really well, you're going to be really, really weak in that range. So I'm going to get you to do 4 reps there, again. So you're going to find this is pretty strong in this range. That's going to keep going for ages, but I want you to really fatigue that point. That point is where you're going to find there's quite a drop off, and you're going to find it's a lot weaker. And you've got to really squeeze that hard. You've got to really, with pretty minimal weight, you're going to find that back part of the range really hard if you're doing these properly. So what we're going to do, once that range is then fatigued, we're going to double it. Or, around that 20-40% is usually a good increment. And then I'm going to do is we're going to go through that range and we're going to fatigue the range that's still left. So I'm going to get you to lengthen your shoulders or protract, retract your shoulders and press those down, really squeeze those lats and drag through. And come to about there, okay? So you'll find anything before that, there's a bit more of a drop off. You try to use your arms, shoulders, whatever else is doing the work. But what we're trying to do is really fatigue that range that's still got quite a bit of work to do, yeah? So that would be my alternative or my better option for trying to match the strength curve for back, yeah? Because you're going to find as you get weak, that range of motion is going to get shorter anyway, because you'll find that back part of the range is always going to fatigue first. Alright, so on this one we're going to go through our straight leg deadlift. What we're going to do is be adding a red band. You wouldn't need anything more than a red band in most cases to give enough resistance to this, but the idea is giving you a different angle to add emphasis to your hips in this movement. So we're going to go through a straight leg deadlift, but we're going to make it as hips dominant as we can. So obviously we can make this more hamstrings, more back, whatever we needed to. But with this band, the idea at that angle is trying to make sure we can feel our glutes more. So if Liz jumps in here and grabs a bar, so I just want you to walk straight into that band, hopefully in the middle of it, that's it, so it's on your hips, and then walk forward and grab the bar. Walk up, grab the bar, come back, that's it. Sorry, so you want to be halfway down that, so keep walking until there's a bit of resistance on you. Okay, so already you're going to feel that that's going to be pulling you back. As long as you're locked again from your lats and you're trying to pivot from your hips, obviously you want to make sure that your movements, so before you even stuck these resistance bands on, are okay. So we want to make sure that go through your movement of straight leg deadlift. You are going to feel like you're being pulled back a bit, but I want you to really think about the first thing to move is, or if you're using your glutes, is you're going to initiate with your glutes. So if you can think about pushing your bum back, bending from, and you're just bending from your hips, that's it, squeeze there. And now think about driving your hips into their pads, squeeze up, okay? Now for you, again, I haven't taken Liz through this before, so I want to keep that bar closer to your legs, okay? So try not to let it go from away from your body, because a lot of people you'll find they either try to load their back or use their back more, or either they try to stay away from it. So one or two things are going to happen. They're going to try bend from their body first, or they're going to bend from the knees. So what we want to do is make sure your back's locked in place, those lats are locked there, and you're trying to pivot from your hips. So if you can get that bar dragging down your leg, okay, push your bum back. Yep, lock those lats, stretch. So see how in that range she starts bringing her, you're actually quite flexible through that range, but what I try to do is try not to bend your knees too much. So that position there where you're not locking legs back, but you're just trying to make sure they're straight. We're trying to keep out your quads, we're not pressing it away from that movement, or we're not trying to lengthen that a bit more. So just try to keep that same angle of your leg the whole way down. So lats are locked, that's looking right there through there. Keep the bar close, you're trying to lengthen these hamstrings here, yeah? Stretch that down. Hold there for one, think about trying to drag your heels back, drive your bum into that pad and squeeze that forward. That's it. So if, and like this, this is a movement that for glutes is not really an easy one for us. So having a band to shove into and having that constant cue of what should be doing the work is a really nice one to wake up a specific muscle group like your glutes in a complicated, compound movement like this. Yeah. So let's give you 2 more reps. Just make sure you've nailed that. Just make sure your lats are locked through there. You're trying to bend from just your hips. Keep it nice and close. Hold there. Squeeze your glutes and think about driving your hips into that bar. Really push into that. Go. Yep. One more.